Ready to achieve your home buying goals? Visit fmdloans.com or call 855-222-5102. First Mortgage Direct, the first step to a better future.
First Mortgage Solutions, LLC, DBA First Mortgage Direct, a Kansas licensed mortgage company, NC00250009, and MLS ID 244476.
You're listening to Almost Entirely Sports.
Because a box and one would be paying extra attention to one person while having the other four players in zone. But in this case, you would just be ignoring the fifth dog on the court.
With Joshua Briscoe.
So perhaps a Barkson one.
It was really my pleasure to join you on the station for the last time in this final episode.
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
That's the voice of known dog hater Scott Chasen, who is our co-resident Suns fan. We'll talk to him about the NBA Finals at some point, about the Suns, their place in the Finals, in their really just their path to history that they are so clearly on. But we'll do that after we talk to him about what he does for his real job, which is covering KU basketball. First, Scott, I imagine that no matter what my first question is, you're going to want to push back on me calling you a dog hater.
Yeah, I love dogs. My mom is literally a vet. We grew up with dogs. And actually, Josh, we just put one down recently. It's very hurtful that you would say such a thing.
Yeah, so actually I knew that, and I really wanted to pick at that scab and immediately. I wanted to set a really toxic tone for our entire conversation.
Good. I've never liked you. I think Beard should be hosting the show. And yeah, I mean, that's what I got.
Wow, passing over Rudy's got to be devastating. Rudy, your thoughts that Scott thinks that Beard should be hosting over you?
I would enjoy it more.
I want to talk about plenty of Suns things momentarily, but there are two major things around KU right now that I think are super duper interesting that I figured would make sense to at least touch base with you on. But that's all basically coming from the basketball side in the interim, in my mind. With what we've seen over this last week or so, where Remy Martin, who was testing the waters while sort of maybe transferring to KU from Arizona State, maybe going pro, he's coming to KU. Ochai Agbaji has come back. Jalen Wilson's back, right? So at this point, KU's basketball roster, I don't know what you expected those guys to end up doing, but you've got to feel pretty good if you're a KU fan about the absolute gobs of talent that are going to be on this team next year, right?
Yeah, I mean, the transfer portal realistically could not have worked better for Kansas. And I almost laughed because Marcus Carr, who may be the best player considering transferring, close to a 20-point-a-game guy, he just put out, he's either going pro or he's got his top schools. And even though Kansas is now full on scholarship, somehow Kansas made that list.
Crazy.
And I was just whatever Bill Self, Bill Self used to have the reputation for being a great, and I guess he still does, a spring recruiter, second period, that he would go out and land someone that no one thought he could because they'd either develop a great relationship or, the Andrew Wiggins thing coming out of nowhere, or, they find a way to get these guys. And what this has really turned into with the transfer portal and things expanding is you get Bill Self, who, everyone can agree he's good with media. He's, witty. He's funny. He has good conversations and such. He gets to go to these older-aged college players, talk basketball with them, joke around with them, and be like, hey, do you want to come play for Kansas? And what, we're seeing is a lot of them are saying, yeah, or, going to another prominent school, be it UNC, be it a, even I guess like a Texas with Chris Beard, you would expect to start having real success. Obviously other blue bloods. So it's worked out great for Kansas. All these decisions pretty much swung, I would argue, the best possible way for Kansas. Obviously, Kansas would be better if Marcus Garrett were taking that extra year of eligibility. Mm-hmm. But if that happens, they don't have the roster that they do have now. And quite frankly, you have to see how it all fits because it's transfers, and Bill Self haven't really done it quite to this extent before. But if the guys hit at the level they think they do, they're a preseason top 3 team. Most people have them 2 or 3 that may end up being underrated, going into the year if the pieces do work out like they think.
Which of those various moves, if not by surprise, would you say was most important if you were going to specifically look at the guys who could have been tilting one way or another?
Remy Martin. And I think the reason why is that in basketball, there are certain positions that are they're not the most important, but they're kind of weirdly important. And the third guard is one of them. And, you've got your, starting point man who ideally, that was a struggle for KU last year, but most of the time under Bill Self it hasn't been. You've got your two guard, and if it's a guy like a Malik Newman, or when Devontae wasn't the point guard, when Devontae Graham was the two guard, I mean, that elevates your team to a new level. But that third guard swings so many games just because, like, do you have a drop-off? What if someone's in foul trouble? What if someone is injured? And when you add Remy Martin, that shifts the conversation about the third guard to being either, Joe Yesufu, who, for all we know, could end up being a starter, DeJuan Harris, Bobby Pettiford. It gives you all these options. Whereas before, one of those guys had to be, maybe the number one guard or, the number two guard. And so it was just scarier. It was this equation where you didn't know how all these pieces were going to fit. And then you add a guy who was first-team All-Pac-12 2 years in a row. And some people say, he wasn't much of a facilitator at Arizona State, a very valid criticism. Well, hey, go back to his sophomore year when he was playing with good talent.
Yeah.
Dude averaged 5 assists per game. And I think that's a similar role to what he'll take on. I'd be shocked if he averages 20 points a game because they have scoring at every position. They're overflowing with depth. They have a ton of good players and can play 2 big, 1 big, no bigs, depending on what they want to do. But, 12 and 5, something like he averaged as a sophomore, if he does that, that will elevate, Kansas immeasurably. And then all of a sudden you're talking about a guy like, Joe Yesufu, maybe he's the third guard. Maybe, a guy like DeJuan Harris, who, arguably could have been starting on this team. He may not even play. Like, he's going to have to earn minutes.
Yeah.
And so I think it just completely changed the formation, the foundation, everything, and adding a guy like Ochai Agbaji back is great. I think he was pretty close to a coin flip decision. I don't think he did, he didn't do well in the combine scrimmages. I don't know if that made his decision for him, but it sure made his decision obvious about what he needed. And yeah, I mean, Kansas is just loaded now and has tons of talent at just about every spot.
And I mean, you covered I think at least 3 follow-up questions I was going to have for you, so incredibly efficient. It's nice to know that you can still talk about KU whenever we make the time for it. I was really worried for a little while there. But I'm looking at the roster, and again, just like you just laid out, I'm seeing a bunch of guys that could be starters on a very, very good basketball team who aren't going to be guaranteed incredibly major roles at this point. Like, can you speak to what that's going to mean as what you call a good problem in terms of Bill Self making that work, where you have guys who may be seeing some changing expectations for what their role will be? Like, are we gonna, can I say the P word? Are we gonna perhaps be anywhere near a platoon? Are we going to see just a ton of rotations? Is it going to be a super long bench? Are you going to see guys that are getting totally shut out? Just how way too early, how do you see that unfolding, or at least what's that process of answering that question going to look like?
Well, Bill Self's going to be able to go back to encourage guys to playing a lot harder and fouling a lot more just because they have the bodies to do it. And he's always said that one of the best ways to work out minutes is to have guys who aren't afraid to foul, because it's like, oh, you're in foul trouble? No worries. We got 3 more of you,
Yeah.
and just go to the next guy. Maybe they're not quite as good, but a perfect example is a guy like Christian Brown. If Christian Brown has to play based off what he was last year, 30 minutes a game, it's not terrible. He's a good player. He had some good games. He certainly faded down the stretch, but he had some, pretty good games, good shooting games. West Virginia was one. Obviously, he had a 30-piece, I think, early in the year. He can certainly do that. But if you don't have to rely on him and you can say, well, look, there's Ochai, there's Jalen, there's Joe Yesufu that I was just talking about. You could play 2 small guards together and, maybe 2 forwards. I don't know. You can mix and match so many different ways. Now, all of a sudden, it's a little bit easier. And I think one of the biggest issues the KU team had last year was just shot creation. And how many guys do you have that can go make a play on their own? Not to, I guess it'll segue well, but not to bleed into the Suns conversation early. Right. That's why a guy like Cameron Payne matters so much.
Yeah.
Because even when he's taking mind-bogglingly insane 3-point shots, he can still do it, right? The ball, you don't have to make 12 straight, crisp passes just to get a good post entry and, try something that way. It's like you just got a dude who can go get buckets. And KU has a ton of those now. I mean, Remy Martin is one of them. Joe Yesufu proved to be one of them at the end of last year. The hope with Ochai Agbaji, now he hasn't been that before. He showed maybe some signs of being that late in the year. The hope is he grows into that. The hope is Jalen Wilson goes into that. Obviously, there are a bunch of post guys and big guys too. And then, think about this. They have a bunch of freshmen who are pretty, highly heralded. A guy like Zach Clements, who's maybe the best shooting big man in the the high school ranks, KJ Adams, a do-everything kind of four-man who's like a small ball four, kind of bowling ball, likes to drive. I think he drew some comparisons to like Mark Vital at Baylor. And again, those guys may not play unless they're good enough to play. So I think the equation just looks so much different from last year's team, which was really, really hard to watch at times because it was like, what can you do with a bunch of guys who just don't score or need someone else to set them up?
Yeah.
To this year's team where at least at a minimum you have a few of those. Truly, I don't know that last year's team had one. Like, Marcus Garrett was not that guy.
Mm-hmm.
Bryce Thompson was not that guy. I don't know that last year's team had one of those guys. If the improvement breaks right and everything breaks right, I mean, this year's team could have 4 or 5 of them.
I love that distinction because this is if there was a Josh talks about KU basketball bingo card, this would be the free space. Is that everything eventually goes back to Frank Mason? Because for whatever reason, watching him play was like, and maybe it's just a whole series of events, but like he was one of the early, for me, kind of earlier in the process KU guys where I was like, watching him felt different, and like there was a joy of watching him play basketball. And being able to get to the basket is not the same thing as obviously just being able to create a shot at any point. But that sort of within the scope of Kansas basketball, that changed what I was looking for. And you're right. And again, now we're sort of bleeding back into Remy Martin and everything as well. But like the ability to have a guy who can get to the basket or create his own shot somewhere else or distribute as his best trait. Like those, I think all three of those things were largely missing from last year's team off the top of my head. And to be able to say, like, basically this entire roster can do that in the 2021-22 season is absurd.
Yeah, well, and again, this is no fault of Marcus Garrett, but it's why it's important that sometimes you do have to lose really good players and change your style to maximize the talent, because Marcus Garrett did not draw the fear that any of those guys who, might not have been a good example is like a Tyshawn Taylor. Tyshawn Taylor, especially in his last year, was probably a better player than Marcus Garrett. I think it would be a lot closer than people would think because of how obviously special Marcus Garrett was defensively. And he did a lot of things, toughness, rebounding, leadership, that were really important. But again, when you have a guy like Tyshawn Taylor, now Elijah Johnson can go off and play a great game and help the team to the Final Four because, who's caring about him? Travis Relaford, if you want to put him in the Christian Brown role in terms of offensive, what he was doing in the offensive end of the court, now his lanes are more open, his shots are more open, his driving lanes are there because, again, they're so fearful of, well, do I have to help off this guy or I need to be watching Remy Martin because he can get past his defender and get to the rim. I mean, Frank Mason was that. People remember Frank Mason as a great driver. He was. And yet one of his best traits was if someone went under a ball screen, he was going to pull up from three. And KU has a few of those guys. But, man, last year they had a bunch of those guys who were timid and who didn't want to shoot those shots. I think the biggest criticism you can have of a guy like Ochai Agbaji is that it's so cliche to be like, oh, he's too nice. He's always smiling. But, like, in a way that is what applies to his game, because the best game I've ever seen Ochai Agbaji play, two of them actually. One was at Texas his freshman year, his first start, where he just played like he didn't give a bleep, and everyone else had a bad game, and I think they lost that game. But he scored like 22 points or something like that. He played great because he just didn't care. He was like, no one else has it. I got to do something. And then his game at the Big 12 tournament against Oklahoma, he might have hit 4 threes in a row, something like that. And you see him screaming and yelling, and it's like, who is this guy? And then, you contrast that with what he did at the NBA Draft Combine. He measures great. He has great length. He has a great vertical, 41.5 inches. And then you take that into the scrimmage game, and it's like you need binoculars to notice anything he's doing on the court. Like you have to be staring at him and be like, oh, he really did, a good job on help defense there, or he really boxed his man well. And it's like, hey, dude, you're trying to make the NBA. Demand the ball and go shoot it. And so I think that's the development for him to kind of join those other guys. But even if he doesn't, I think things will be so much easier for him because Remy Martin is not scared of shooting, and Joe Yesufu is not scared of shooting. And Jalen Wilson kind of showed that at times. I think he'll emerge and develop. This is just his second playing season of college. He was injured his first year. So he's a guy you would expect to make a jump. And if those guys are doing that, then I think your Ochai Agbajis and your Christian Browns become a lot more comfortable getting theirs too. And that's when I think things start to get scary for a college basketball roster.
I think this team's super interesting. I think that's super interesting. With that being said, and not yet to the Sun side. I want to get to the Sun side. We're not there yet because I wanted to ask how you've taken in all of the name, image, likeness stuff. Where it seemed like an avalanche sort of preparing to fall for a while, but then you get the Supreme Court ruling, and then very shortly thereafter, the NCAA is like, all right, we don't care anymore. Do what you want. We can't stop you. And then it all just starts. And from Mitch Lightfoot on 1-800-GOT-JUNK to Cam Martin's, with all due respect, truly hideous logo and merch. We got to keep working with him. We got to Cam. You can play a few games. We'll help you out. We'll get you a better logo. We can do that. But from the scope of whatever you guys have done, I don't really care all that much about. But I'm just sort of curious how you've seen it progressing over this last really just week or two, and then what you think it's going to mean going forward. What will people actually notice as this changes college sports?
Yeah, I think people will notice when there's a notable story that it affects something, be it a recruitment, be it a transfer. A guy transfers because he likes, he has these opportunities. He doesn't have those, this, whatever, wherever he is. I think that's when people will notice it. I think what we've seen right now is like, boy, how stupid were people to fear this.
Yeah.
And I guess fear is probably the wrong word. Mm. People fear change. People fear, people fear empowering others.
Yeah.
But, there was just a large sect, I would argue, of the population that was saying things like, and I push back this, I've spoken about this before, but these athletes won't even understand what to do with it. Or this one's my favorite. My absolute favorite is when they say, well, what's to stop a car company from paying this guy $1 million to make sure he goes to KU? And let's think about that for a second. Let's create a person, okay? Can you give me a name, just like a generic name?
Yeah, like Sudi Ralazar.
Okay. I'm going to pick another one. I'm just going to pick the name Tom, and that's not in reference to any Tom. It's just the first name that came to mind.
Tom. Salazar.
Tom Salazar. Okay, we have Tom.
Do you have a Tom in your family?
I do not.
Okay, great. We're safe.
Okay, good. All right. We have our local business owner, Tom. Tom sells Hondas or whatever. And Andrew Wiggins.
Tom Salazar's Hondas.
Yes, Tom Salazar
Sorry.
Honda.
Go ahead.
And Andrew Wiggins, the next one, so the second, is really thinking about Kansas. First of all, what incentive does Tom Salazar, our car owner, have to give $1 million to this person? Second of all, what possible return on investment is he getting? You could put Michael Jordan in a commercial for a local Lawrence Honda dealer. And is that $1 million? No is the answer to that. People know what Honda is. It's just so many of these hypotheticals don't even make sense. And then also, let's say the guy wants to do it. Let's say he's a huge KU basketball fan and wants to do it. Okay, what is the problem with that? You don't think there are huge fans and boosters everywhere, and
That's
you
right.
don't think that they're not going to spend, let's say, first of all, they're not going to spend $1 million every year to get a guy because they're going, they'll go broke. But second of all, if they did, that would be really great for some people to get some money because people really value them, which is, again, how it works in every other field. If I got out of journalism tomorrow and I started writing articles or something and some company really wanted me to come there and they weren't allowed to pay me, right? That would make no sense.
Right.
They would be like, no, we want you on our marketing team. We're going to offer you more money or offer you a more desirable parking spot. Whatever you can. That was the only other thing I could think of in terms of what a business could offer you, but I'm hanging in there.
Sometimes it's really evident that we've had predominantly sports media jobs.
100%. And I don't even have an office to go to. My office is my apartment. So the parking spot is just where this motorcycle is sitting out front and never leaves. So that's my big complaint right now. But it just makes no sense. People are afraid of this because I don't know why. I don't want them playing for the money. I want look, college basketball, and I say this affectionately as a fan, it's still going to suck. It's still going to be bad. It's still going to be a bunch of guys at times who can't put the ball in the basket, who are just scrapping really hard because they care and they play for their school and the fans are going to love it. Okay, that's why college basketball is great, and I really enjoy it because it's all this emotion and caring, and every game feels so important because if you lose one time, you could be out of the Big 12 race or out of the Big 12 tournament or NCAA tournament. It's not going to become, Major League Baseball with 162 games and half of them don't matter. or playoff series with 7 games. It's not going to become that. So I think you don't have to have that fear, and I think those in power have done a really good job tricking those without power to be afraid of those things. And I think what we've learned is you don't have to. Cam Martin has a clothing brand or whatever. What did that change? Christian Brown sent out a interestingly worded statement clearly from a PR team that was like, I will only choose brands that support my teammates and whatever. And it's possible he could have signed with someone. I don't know, because it doesn't affect me, and I covered the team. Because, again, if something interesting happens, I'll write about it. But, what does it matter that Mitch Lightfoot signed a deal with a trash company? Who does this affect? Who does this change? Other than it helps the athletes. And so I think we should all be in favor of that. Athletes getting what they're worth, getting their market value. And so, yeah, obviously, if it hasn't come across, I'm very much in favor of the changes to name, image, and likeness.
The only thing I would even add to that, and something we'll probably talk about more later in the show, is there's the guy in Miami who has the martial arts gym who's offering any scholarship player on Miami football a $500 monthly deal that could end up being $500,000 for this year. By the way, right now, this dude is getting his money's worth because everyone on planet Earth is talking about this story. But also, you'd say, all right, well, there is a guy paying a huge chunk of money where a little bit of money goes to a bunch of players if they want to take it. College sports we've talked so many times about locker rooms with huge TVs in every locker and slides to take you from one level to another. If any money is getting moved around, this dude wants the U to be back. If he could give $500,000 to pay exorbitant prices to some assistant coaches, or to put some comfier chairs in the locker room, or he could offer $500 a month to any of the players who want to come and record a promo for his gym, I would rather, just totally personally, because this is the point we're at now, it's just preference, I would much rather see these guys get $500 a month that they can put straight into their pockets than to see $500 a month for each player end up going into the school to pay, again, assistants and locker room perks. Like, I don't see the problem here.
Yeah, no, I'm 100% on board with that. And again, I think it just ties back to this idea that, like, people, for whatever reason, maybe it's their biases, maybe it's, who knows, maybe there are political reasons, I truly don't know. People have feared this, and they have feared the change, and what does this mean? And, look, I think about, again, I mentioned recruitments. If a player leaves your school and goes to another school because they have better opportunities, the person to be mad at is not the player. And you see this in sports all the time. Like, someone will leave Utah and then go to, like, New York. And the city will hold a grudge because Utah's just as good as New York, darn it. And, it's not, but, Utah thinks that. And so I think, like, again, you kind of just have to understand, like, how life works and that people want to be happy. I think me talking to the listener would love if someone were just going to give you $500 to be like, I go to Jimmy John's all the time, or I go to Chipotle. I mean, when I walk into Twisted Fresh and the lady thought I abandoned them because I didn't go in for like a month when I was learning how to cook, and like that makes me feel good. I want free Twisted Fresh. Right? I like when they know my order. Like, everyone wants that, right?
Yeah.
Like, so I don't. It's just funny to me, and not funny. Funny is the wrong word. It's infuriating, probably is a better word, that people are like, no, that's scary. Like, no, that's wrong. How they already get this, they already get that. Imagine someone saying that when your boss tries to give you a raise, and it's like, well, Craig's already making $55K. Like, do we really need to give him another $2K? Like, yes. How about the answer would be yes.
Yeah.
I would like those perks, or I'd like that extra week of vacation, or I'd like that. And so, again, it just seems so crazy and mind-boggling to me that people, like, fear what they would gladly encourage and want for themselves.
Yeah. Crazy that, there is a large enough subset that thinks, no, that you should not be able to make money. If people want to give you money, you should not be allowed to take it. It's wild.
Yeah.
There's some exceptions to that, I'm sure. Also, though, stunning. What do you get it twisted? I'm so happy to hear literally the only other person outside of my immediate family I think I've ever heard bring up Twisted Fresh just in a conversation apropos of nothing.
Yeah, well, the one here I don't even have to order because they know, but I get a chicken Cobb wrap on wheat, and then I mix up a bunch of the ingredients. I add cucumber. I don't like bacon. I don't like dressing. It's the whole thing. And so they try to change my order routinely. They try to say, what about this? What about trying this? And I push back on that because I don't need anyone telling me what to do, and I'm a very basic fan of basic taste. And, but it's right by my apartment. Twisted Fresh is amazing. Free ad, free promo, unless they're a sponsor of yours.
They're not, but
I'd could be.
love it if they were. I'm a big fish taco guy at Twisted.
I've heard of Twisted Fresh, but I've just never I just never know what they serve, so I just typed up the menu, and I am just staring at this chicken cashew avocado wrap.
The issue for us is that the one
Josh,
that's
I
by
think I'm
the
done
station.
with the show for the day.
That's fine. If you bring back fish tacos, you can leave.
I wasn't coming back.
Okay, well, the fish tacos are incredible, and
wow, the food here looks amazing.
the issue for
burgers,
us.
too.
I've had the burger, I think maybe once. The issue for us is that it's right by Slim Chickens. And so every time I'm
Yeah.
sort of over there oh boy, I haven't had the fish tacos from Twisted in forever. Then Slim's is right there. And it's tough. That's a tough battle for anybody to
Cajun
win.
chicken tacos?
Yeah.
That sounds amazing.
You just woke up Siri. You were so excited.
Siri's placing orders for me.
Honestly?
You know what?
Wouldn't hate it.
You know what? You know what we don't have tomorrow night?
Radio show.
You know what I might get for dinner tomorrow
Maybe a
night?
little Twisted Fresh.
I go to Twisted Fresh and try it out.
We gotta at least see if they have a Twitter presence. If they want to, I feel like they could hop on. Again, we gave you some free advertising, Twisted Fresh.
I think we have room for him.
Why don't you? Come around. We'll throw you on the Twitch stream or something. Come
We
on,
might have
Twisted.
space for him.
We'll make space for you, Twisted. All right, this has been the end of our conversation with Scott Chasen of Fog.net, 24/7 Sports, CBS Sports Network. You can go to kansas.247sports.com. No beards, we're not going to break. Fog.net, though. You follow him on Twitter at Chasen Scott. Thank you, Scott, for joining us. Now we're joined by Scott Chasen, Phoenix Suns fan. Scott! 1-0, baby! 1 down, 3 to go! 1 down, 3 to go, Scott!
Oh, man. See, I wish I were in studio now. I would do the thing where I back away from the mic and yell. And
Sure.
I would do it on the phone, but I couldn't then hear feedback and how it's going. No, it's been what a beautiful first game. I actually got to watch it. I told you this with my dad, who is not a huge NBA fan. He's a college basketball fan. And it was very funny to watch, the culmination of NBA concepts that we have all seen, develop over years.
Yeah.
That, Mike Budenholzer and the Bucks are still not aware of somehow, slowly take place more and more. And it's they were oh, we're having a problem that our big man is ending up on a guard when we switch.
Yeah.
What's the solution? Why don't we go to another pick and roll coverage where our big man will end up on a guard, but give him 10 feet of space? It's just insane. I watched Stephen A. Smith after the game. Stephen A. Smith, I find very funny, but also sometimes, kind of makes or stumbles into good points, depending on where he starts. And in this case, I thought it was funny. He was like, I want to be nice about this.
Yes.
The Milwaukee Bucks are completely clueless
Yes.
and they should be dropped off a cliff.
Clueless.
But I think he was being nice from the perspective of, and I think this is what he meant, because in his line of business, names are everything. I think when he was like, I want to be nice about this, I'm not going to say Mike Budenholzer needs to be fired.
Right.
I'm going to say he's an incompetent head coach. And we have heard, by the way, multiple former NBA players on multiple different networks call the Milwaukee Bucks the dumbest team in the NBA, which is stunning. And, again, a referendum on coaching. If you watch DeAndre Ayton in college, he was a horrible defender. If you watched him in his first season, he was a horrible defender. He is now arguably the most complete, not the best, but the most complete defensive big man in the NBA. Obviously, guys like Rudy Gobert, Joel Embiid are better at certain things, but he does more
Jokic.
things that allow you to play different styles. Yeah, absolutely. That's coaching, right? That's learning from people. That's learning from players.
Yeah.
And the fact that we're in year 25 of the Bucks experiment, and you have to look at discount Alex Jones look completely baffled when a team mixes up their coverage on the sidelines.
What?
It's insane. It's just insane to me. I don't know how they haven't fired him yet.
He looks like Dana Holgrimson to me, like a bigger Dana Holgrimson, the Houston head coach, but also the Alex Jones thing is.
Does he look like Daniel Holgerson? I think you put an M in his name weirdly.
Is it Holgren?
Holgor.
Holgorson.
He does look a little bit.
Yeah,
but
definitely
he looks,
bigger.
He looks like
Dana's
Alex
thinner,
Jones
but
grew his hair out for
yeah,
sure.
That's the much better.
What a call.
Look comp, yeah.
I thought listening to Stephen A. say that last night, I was absolutely floored, because that was exactly what he was doing. Is he didn't want to say specifically Mike Budenholzer absolutely barfed on his shoes or whatever, or has not just tonight but has continued to. It was shocking. Also, Giannis is not even on the injury report this for Game 2, which makes sense considering he was doubtful at lunchtime before the game yesterday and then ended up playing pretty well. What was your favorite sort of part of the coverage of Game 1? Was it whenever everybody talked about how great Giannis was mid-game, or after the game when everyone was talking about how hurt Giannis clearly was?
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I turned on 2 sports radio stations just a little bit ago, and one of them was talking about the legacy of Chris Paul, and then I flipped to the other one, and they were talking about Stuart Little. And so you can figure out
who's to say who's who.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's impossible to know. But I will say this. The Suns have definitely got their credit via the Chris Paul, everyone loves Chris Paul, and the story for him is so great. The thing to me that is so funny about the coverage of this and everything, and I think and Josh, again, I texted you this too, like, if you go back to Kevin Durant and Steph Curry, and this was well documented in a book that Ethan Strauss wrote, but there was reporting that suggested that Nike executives really wanted Kevin Durant to go to the Warriors. Because the reason why Steph Curry and Under Armour, and they wanted him to kind of overshadow Steph, which definitely happened on the court. I mean, who got the Finals MVP? That was Kevin Durant. But also, definitely happened in terms of like shoes and branding and things like that. And when you think about just a horrible, terrible way to form a partnership, whether or not that was a deciding factor, it's certainly one of them. And you can argue, maybe he just joined them because he likes, the Bay Area, but then abandoned it for Brooklyn, whatever. That partnership had flaws at the beginning. Now it was successful because you took the greatest team of all time and added the greatest scorer in the history of basketball. So of course it was going to be successful, but it also had that kind of like ticking point where it blew up. And I think the reason why Chris Paul is now getting so much love and so much respect, one, because he was in a breakup with James Harden, and I think when that happens, James Harden has been a superstar who's attracted so much negative attention that it almost turned the narrative positive by itself. And then you couple that with he goes to Oklahoma City and turns them into this kind of fun, upstart, up-and-coming team. And, everyone is just on his side now. He's the little guy who fought back against, whatever. Meanwhile, James Harden is eating Chipotle burritos, trying to get himself traded out of a situation by, putting on a bunch of weight or whatever. So, again, I think it was all kind of in the works for people to want to prop up Chris Paul. And then him saying, he chose to go to Phoenix because he believed in Devin Booker. When Chris Paul made the All-Star game and Devin Booker didn't, he said the wrong guy made the All-Star game. And he continued to say that. He said Devin Booker is the team's best player. He is, but Chris Paul is probably the more important guy, especially right now. He's propped up DeAndre Ayton. What he's done for his career. I think DeAndre Jordan called him like the Michael Jordan of people to play with as teammates, or something like that.
That's a good phrase, yeah.
But so it's so easy to root for them and whatnot. And then obviously Giannis on the other side is such a big story. And I know he has definitely gotten a lion's share of the coverage. To me, and this is why I think Tim Legler is one of the smartest people on television. Like how many talking heads did I see last night say, Giannis looked great. He pre-injury saw 20 and 17, dunking on people, blocking shots. I don't know about you, Josh, but, I agree with you. He looked good. He put up numbers. I believe the Bucks outscored the Suns by 1 point when he was on the court. But he did not look like Giannis. He did not attack the way that Giannis does. He was not aggressive. There were times where Devin Booker would get switched onto him and hold him off for about 5 seconds, and then the switch back could happen where Ayton would come back over to him. And an aggressive Giannis does not let that happen. He's in attack mode immediately. And I think injuries are obviously physical, number one, but like 95% of the way there is mental. And so I don't know if it's a physical hurdle. I don't know if it's mental and trusting his injury. Doesn't look like the same Giannis to me. And as long as that's the case, the Bucks are outmatched against the Suns. Now, the healthier he gets, it becomes a very interesting series. And you could argue the Bucks are maybe a slightly better team depending on the injury situations. If he does get healthy. But at least the Giannis I saw last night, he definitely had some big volume numbers. But when he's camping on the perimeter and you can allow a guy like DeAndre Ayton to simultaneously guard him and have 2 feet in the paint to guard everyone else rolling to the rim and get rebounds, it's just not a winning formula for Milwaukee. So they have to figure out ways to really change the game in that regard.
Well, there's the knee in what regard? There's the knee, and then there's the mental, and also he hasn't played basketball since his knee bent backwards. So Part of me hopes that his sort of ramping up is evident throughout the finals, and the other part of me hopes that that's true just really, really slowly. Like that he looks great for like the last, I don't know, 2 minutes of game 4, and at that point it's already too late. I think that's what I actually hope, because I don't think my heart could take a 7-game series. I could probably deal with it in 5 or 6. Scott, I will let you go in both your KU and Suns covering form. Did you have a final dismount?
I did actually, which was a beautiful thing about the sport of basketball. Brook Lopez had 17 points. He went 3 of 5 from 3. I believe he was minus 17 in the game. Jay Crowder was 0 of 8, 0 of 5 from 3, and he led the Suns with a plus-minus of plus 19. So it turns out that being tall and making threes are not the only things that matter when you're on a basketball court. I think defense, rebounding, and moving the ball actually matter a little bit too.
Yeah.
Yeah, saying that in front of Rudy is like a personal attack, but
Is
Rudy like Brook Lopez?
I mean,
pretty much.
I think
I can't tell the difference honestly
what
between Brook
really
Lopez
matters
and Jokic.
Is
basically
having a
the same
team
player,
that
I think,
knows
honestly.
how to flop. That's
Lopez
all.
plays defense, though.
I was gonna say Brook Lopez is a better defender for sure, Rudy. That's a good point. Thank you, Beards.
I think the key is just having a team that knows how to flop.
And
Paul
maybe
can
and
do
going
it,
and going up
Campaign
against
can do it.
and going up against teams that brutally punch your stars in the face. And yes, that makes Campaign one of the
Campaign is
Suns'
absolutely
stars.
a star.
Yeah, 100%.
It's a big 4.
I
Trademark. TM.
I
The
meant what I
Suns
said.
created the big 4.
Thank you, Scott.
Thanks, Josh.
Follow him on Twitter at Chase and Scott. If you want more KU stuff, go to fog.net. It's with a P. You know it's PHOG because the KU, you guys get it. But fog.net or kansas.247sports.com. Follow him on Twitter at Chase and Scott. We're going to do just a couple we're going to have some long segments today. I can feel it. This show's going to keep flying by. I don't know what we're going to play whenever we come back. I got more questions for Beards. We've got more Beards wedding talk to revisit. I would like to continue talking about the Suns. That's on the table.
I gotta defend Jokic.
The Royals lost again.
You're going to do that during the break, Rudy. Don't lie.
No. Actually, I think the Suns are actually. I heard some stuff on ESPN Daily today that I think is fascinating with the Suns.
ESPN Daily today was fantastic.
Yeah. I think we truly are underselling how because you said
They are everywhere. It's everywhere.
Brook Lopez is not a terrible defender, and he looks lost in the pick and roll. They have this Suns team legitimately has one of the best pick and roll offenses that we've seen in a while.
Yeah,
it's almost
blast.
unstoppable.
And also Pablo Torre used the phrase CP3-ologian, and that I literally, because Kevin Arnovitz was coming on, he was introducing him as the ESPN's resident CP3-ologian, Kevin Arnovitz.
Yeah.
And I literally had to stop the podcast and just sort of give myself a minute.
It was good
because of how
really
mad I was.
I enjoyed it.
I was
I'm a
also
Suns
happy.
fan. I'm a Suns guy.
Oh,
Devin Booker, baby.
I'm going to put on a Jamal Murray jersey. I'm going to beat you up in the
God,
hallway
did you see
after
that?
this. Yes, the Suns and 4 guy met Jamal Murray.
Yeah.
Nuggets
took another loss. Nuggets lost in 5 today.
Go get put on your Jamal Murray jersey and meet me in the hallway. Summer's here, and there's one question I have for you. Are you ready to unveil your beach bod? It's a question from me and also a question from our friends at Manscaped. They just launched their 4th-generation performance package, which includes the Lawnmower 4.0. You heard that right, the 4.0. You can complement your summer bod with a trim from the leaders in male grooming. The sun is shining, and it's calling your name. Join the 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped, and get ready for what Manscaped is calling right here Hot Guy Summer by going to manscaped.com for 20% off plus free shipping with the code ALMOST. That's the code ALMOST at manscaped.com for 20% off and free shipping. I've been so impressed by the products that Manscaped has sent us. It's truly the best in class in all male grooming products. I know I've probably said that a million times before, but I can prove it for myself. I've loved everything that Manscaped has sent. And did I mention that their trimmer is waterproof also? You can take it in the shower, or you can keep it all dry from your chest all the way down to, wherever you stop, I guess. You can go all the way to your toe knuckles. Manscaped's going to get you covered there. No matter how you use it or how far you go, the Lawnmower 4.0 is the best trimmer for you. You can get 20% off and free shipping with the code ALMOST at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping with the code ALMOST at manscaped.com. Escape the shrubs and weeds this summer and shine with Manscaped.
This is Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Briscoe.
How does this beard smell?
I don't know. I don't go around smelling beards.
Does she mean you as a whole person or just your facial hair? I guess we'll never know.
Oops.
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Here's a really quick, very serious, very sportsy game before I ask Beards more questions about getting married, talk about Beards' wedding and all that. There is a NFL account tweet where you can only pick one player from each offense from one team in each division. They're doing it for the AFC North. I don't care. But I was doing it for the AFC West. And obviously, you have to take Mahomes.
Carr.
I would have bet my dong that you were going to make a Derek Carr joke before I got to say the quarterback. I would have bet my penis for no reward.
You have two of them. I mean, I don't know if it just doubles.
I don't know. I would have Mike Vrabel.
I don't know if it's longer, if you just two of them. I don't know if you get Vrabels. Like, I don't know how that works.
I get Mike Vrabel.
I don't know how this works, but
I would have bet anything that you were going to say Derek Carr. But you're taking Mahomes.
Yeah.
But it's funny what that does to the rest of the game.
So offense, you said just offense?
Quarterback, running back, receiver, tight end. That's what they've tweeted out. And I think the first two picks are Mahomes and Darren Waller.
Mahomes, Waller with the
as
Raiders,
your Chiefs and Raider.
Keenan Allen, Chargers,
probably, and then whatever running back the Broncos have right now.
Well, you know what? Reverse this. I might go with then Austin Eckler of the Chargers,
and then like Jerry Jeudy,
and then I could go with either whether it's him or Courtland Sutton. Like those are really good. They got some good receivers.
It's just kind of wild.
Yeah.
The thought experiment was very easy. That I think it's got to be Mahomes and Waller, especially without Hunter Henry now in LA.
Those are the two easy ones. I guess if you wanted to, if you were trying, you're going to see somebody say this, where it's like, well, I'll take Herbert and then I'll take Kelsey or Hill with the Chiefs.
I honestly,
and you can. It's not the worst argument in the world. You should go with Mahomes because he's the best quarterback, and you want the best quarterback, right? Like. It's just not the worst argument in the world.
No, I think if you
wanted to go... like, I want
go...
Herbert and Clyde, no.
You're right. No, that would be dumb. We don't do dumb things on this radio show. I just volunteered my dong for a stupid joke and a bet. But I think you go Mahomes, Waller, Keenan Allen. Who do the...
Melvin... Is Melvin?
Oh, yeah.
Who are the Denver Broncos running back right now?
Yeah, I guess it's mostly Melvin Gordon.
I think it was Melvin Gordon,
I really don't.
right?
I would rather just have the receiver that I'd prefer. So I guess I would do. I would go.
Can I just have Teddy?
I might go Eckler and Jeudy. I don't hate that. I don't know if it's 1 year or whatever. But if you wanted to go Herbert, Hill, Waller, and then
I think it's Hoover
and Gordon. I don't hate that. All right. Thank you for putting me back in my place. Beards, you got married.
Yep.
What did you think? You just said you thought we would talk about the wedding itself some more. What was it like for you? What was your whirlwind experience like? Go ahead and flash your ring to the Twitch.
It was Melvin Gordon.
Man, let me tell you, both of us are very disappointed we didn't get more of that cake.
Cake was good.
This
is devastating. There were boxes of it whenever we were leaving. It had been boxed up. I caught out of the corner of my eye, and I figured you guys were going to get, you can freeze it or whatever. The cake, both cakes were good, and the cannolis were good.
So the thing about the cake is the gal that we got to do it, she said that at the year anniversary or whatever, she will just make us a cake topper for free instead of freezing it and then having
that's
dumb your wedding cake frozen in your fridge for a year.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Cake,
yeah. So your biggest regret was that you didn't get enough cake.
It was good cake, man.
Now, which cake are we talking about? Are we talking about the boot cake or the cake?
Either one.
Did you get any of the boot cake?
That was the lemon.
Okay.
I never tried. I don't think I ever got the boot cake.
Renee and I each got one piece of cake, and then we had a cannoli.
Beards, you like lemon cake?
Yes.
That's shocking.
That is exotic for you.
Love lemon cake.
Wow.
Absolutely. I would have bet my dog. Go ahead.
Do you know what? So there were two flavors that were in the
Beards'
the actual
Beards'
wedding
groom's cake or whatever was in the shape of a cowboy boot. By
it
the way.
was.
Yeah. And it was decorated as a cowboy boot.
Delicious.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Did you know what the two flavors were for the main cake itself?
There was definitely like Oreo stuff in there, right?
Yes.
It was like a chocolate Oreo. It was delicious.
It was like Oreo and I don't remember if it was like white cake or whatever.
I think it was chocolate cake. Was it not chocolate?
No, that was something else. That was chocolate and the raspberry, whatever. That one was what Rebecca picked out.
That one also
okay, I think that's the one that I had.
That was great. Were there 3 cakes in a cannoli?
Including the groom's cake, yeah. Well, the main cake was like
I
had
might
two
not
different
have
tiers
had
that
the
were different
lemon
flavors.
cake.
I definitely didn't have the lemon cake.
It was so good. It was so good.
Everything
I
was
did not eat any of Beards' boot. Know that.
The food you guys had in general, I had to lick a little bit of everything because the way it was served. All of it was great.
The cannolis are good.
The McDonald's fast food was great, Beards.
I mean, the food that Rebecca clearly picked out was delicious. All
It
of
was.
it.
We had some salmon, and I love that stuff. Man.
It was all.
So
it was.
good.
It was all.
It was all very good.
It
I
was
very
all
happy.
fabulous. What went a little wrong? Was there anything? Something you go, oh boy, that was a one, or almost went wrong. Dodged a curveball. Either hit a curveball, dodged a bullet. Most stressful moment of the was it Rudy getting there after you were already standing up front?
I mean, let's go ahead
So
and go into that.
I think my most stressful moment where I almost dodged, where I did just barely dodge the moment, was showing up right before the best man and the groom's party starts walking down the aisle.
We talked about this a little bit before you got back, Beards, but I would love to tell this story to you as well. So, you know this. I am 5 minutes later to everything that I say I'm going to be.
Yeah.
But I'm never. But it's never that I'm never getting here at 7:05 for 7 o'clock show. But if I say I'm going to get here at 5, that's not going to be whatever it is. I'm always a little bit wrong. Rudy will say he's going to get somewhere at 5 and then get there at 4:30. Mm-hmm. You know this about both of us.
Yeah.
Renee and I got there and met the only other people that we knew who were there at that time, other than the family that we had already met.
Yeah.
But we got there like half an hour. I think we got there like 5:30. Wedding started at 6. I think.
Yeah.
No sign of Rudy, and it's ticking closer, and closer.
Yep.
And at some point in this process, the other people there that we knew. That's enough information. And Renee and I all we got the back row on the left side, and we were all set in, for the actual ceremony.
I have more on this, but continue doing your thing.
So we were locked in back there.
I have
texting.
the other side of this discussion.
Cannot wait for that.
This is terrifying.
Waiting for Rudy, and it's not happening. Now I knew that Rudy was bringing Grace as his +1. I'd not met Grace at this point. I just knew that there was a girl named Grace who was Rudy's +1. And as me and the other person are texting Rudy, like, hey man, are you gonna get here on time? By the way, somebody needs to let Lesky in at some point, and sorry, Lesky, we're really important mid-story. We are waiting for Rudy to get here, and he's like, yeah, sorry, Grace was running late, whatever. He texts the other person, yeah, sorry, my girlfriend was running late. I go, what? I take the other person's phone and I text Rudy and I say, this is Josh texting from this other person's phone. Your girlfriend? I'm finding this out through this person's phone? Sitting here waiting for you? And by the way, look, I think one of Rudy's worst traits is that he's always too early to things. So I'm glad that Grace is here to fix this for Rudy's behalf.
Yeah. I'm not thrilled about that part, but yeah.
Rudy slides in at like 6:06. Beards is already standing up there in his big old suit, just getting ready to be married, and Rudy comes speeding in. I am waving him like around third base, trying to show him the 2 seats that just opened up in front of us, by the way, because some family had moved up mercifully. Otherwise, Rudy and Grace were about to be in the wedding party just to get there for the actual ceremony.
Yeah, I mean, there was room for me.
So
up front, in the absolute spotlight.
So we are sitting in the bridal suite, all of us together or whatever, and we had the discussion. We were going to start at like 6, and we see that not everybody's sitting down.
Sure.
Not all the chairs are full yet. So we're like, you know what? We'll give it to like 6:10 or whatever.
6:09 to 6:11, somewhere in
so
there.
So everybody can kind of get in, make sure there's no late stragglers, that kind of thing.
Yeah. That's always a good. You want to hit snooze basically on
and
stuff
then,
like that.
So after a couple minutes of that, we're like, somebody comes back and they're like, hey man, all the seats are full. You ready to go? And we're like, okay. So
who lied to you?
Whoever. Okay, so we figured out the culprit here. Whoever told Beard lied to Beard. That's whose fault it is. Because otherwise, I'd been early and been perfectly on time. And this would have been a mission.
Did you see Rudy walk in?
There's no way he missed. Yeah, there is no way he didn't see me.
What were you thinking as Rudy, the early bird that was the last person to arrive?
I had seen you and the other people sitting back there, and I didn't see Rudy. I was like, okay, sure, fine. And then I see Rudy walking over. There he is.
just my face distressed.
The most out of character moment in Rudy's life.
Who's that next to him?
In the biggest moment in Beards' life, colliding all at once. Somebody go let Lesky in.
You are listening to Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Briscoe on Sports Radio 810 WHB.